The Bothy Storytelling Podcast is a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Welcome to the Bothy Storytelling Podcast. I'm your host, Calumlykanspokenword. And today's episode is all about life and the way that, you know what, it sometimes takes over, as it has done for me this week, even though I had grand plans, and also the stories in your head. And as a storyteller, I'm the worst for this. But before we go any further, let's hear from one of our sponsors, and today it is Let's Do Coffee by the Modgy Centre at NATE. Hosted by Daniel Van Vielen and produced by the Modgy Centre for New Venture and Student Entrepreneurship at NATE. Each episode features an interview with a student entrepreneur or NATE alumnus. They dive into topics that explore their challenges, questions and fears involved in operating their companies. It comes out every 2 weeks, and if you want to find out more about the show, have a look at nate.ca/Modgy Centre. That's nate.ca/Modgy Centre for Let's Do Coffee by the Modgy Centre at NATE, hosted by Daniel Van Vielen. Well, life does take over, folks, and as you know, I had a grand plan this week, and that was to pump out about 10 podcasts to catch up for what I'd missed over the last month and a half, 2 months. But life does take over, and a few things happened. You know, I got a couple out at the beginning of the week. Everyone was going well. Managed to get another one out on the Tuesday. The Wednesday, I knew I was going to struggle because I was away doing a school visit all day. And that was tremendous. I was in a local school in Okotoks. I was telling, and God, did they work me though? Jeez, I got in there about 8:30, started at 8:45, and literally didn't stop speaking until 12:30. At 12:30, I had exactly 30 minutes break, but you don't really get a break because some of the students and the teachers want to chat to you as well. So let's say I got 15 minutes to myself. Back in at 1 o'clock and all the way through to 3:15 without a break. I literally couldn't even get a pee break. You know, I had to wait. It was an amazing day's storytelling. But I'm not going to lie to you, folks. It's been a long time since I was worked that hard, and God, did they work me. I have this thing, when I'm doing any event, I often try not to repeat the same stories. Now, I know a lot of people that have heard me for years will say, but Callum, we've heard some of the stories quite a few times from you. But when I'm doing such close, successive event, you know, like sessions, like a school, you know, 1 year after another, you can't tell the same story to the ones, the P1s and the P7s, you know, different kind of attitude. So you can you get to adjust your stories, but the challenge I always made was to try and always tell each group at least different stories. Although I discovered, in the usual vein, you know, when I actually ask for what they like, dragons always comes up. So I end up telling at least one story. I think one story appeared in 4 sets, which is always fun. And it's a good laugh, you know, the kids like it. But it was a tough day and a hard day. But as a result, I came home from that day feeling like I had the flu. 1, because I'm a lazy git and haven't worked that much, or should I say worked like that for a long time. 2, because it was exhausting and I was talking non-stop, and it was a very warm, dry room by the end of the day, which always affects your vocals. So the next day, of course, I get up and I'm, you know, thinking Thursday, let's get things done, and boom, no. My throat's done. I'm exhausted. I have no energy. I'm done. And I'm just going, oh no, I need to get this mission done, you know. And then, of course, you know, as the day went on, I think, okay, just do it. We'll get back to it Friday. And then, of course, Friday, I get some really frustrating news. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a real problem shaking issues like this. In fact, it wasn't just one piece of frustrating news. There was 2 pieces of frustrating news came through. And of course, I dwindle and dwell and get myself all frustrated and tied up in knots. And then the storyteller head kicks in, and all of a sudden, there's 50,000 scenarios out there, all. And okay, I've mentioned this a few times, but the Scots, we're a wonderful people. I mean, we are it. For some reason, people love us, but deep down inside, we're filled with bitterness, despair, anger, and whiskey. That's pretty much us. And coffee. I don't drink that much whiskey these days. In fact, I don't even drink. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe I used to be a fun-loving, I would say alcoholic, but no, that would be really insulting because there was no way I was an alcoholic. I enjoyed drinking. I liked to party. At one point, I was out drinking sometimes 7 nights a week, but certainly I could survive without it. So to say alcoholism, that would be insulting to people who have problems and are trying to work through those. I was definitely, in the Scottish sense, a jovial alcoholic. We'll call it that because basically, you know, Scots like to drink, we like to party, we like to talk. So I was like that. But you know what now? God, I'm like a teetotaler almost. I very rarely drink. I was out about a month ago with a very good friend of mine, the King. You'll know who I'm talking about. And his good lady. And we had a lovely night. It was wonderful. But you know what? I was done for like 2 days after. I can't handle it. I'm 42. I'm getting too old for it. And to be honest, I don't drink enough anymore. And I'm not healthy enough. And I can make 100 excuses. But anyway, maybe that's the problem. Maybe if I just started drinking again, I wouldn't worry so much about the world. But yeah. Unfortunately, what happens to me, and maybe this happens to you guys, so please let me know how everyone kind of copes with stuff, but I can't help it when I get any sort of news that just throws my world off. Instead of just saying, okay, well, you know, let's stay positive. You know, remember the story, the optimist and the pessimist? Well, I don't even think I'm any of them. I think I'm a whole different category that maybe doesn't exist or does exist and I just don't know about. But I am literally doom and gloom monger. My head starts playing scenarios and none of them are happy. The Scotsman comes out, the miserable, moody, doom and gloom. Oh, we're all doomed, I say. I'm like that guy, the character from Dad's Army, an old British TV sitcom. He was Scottish as well, if I remember, and it was always, we're all doomed. And unfortunately, that's what happens to me. I come out with this mentality of it's all doom and gloom. Now, the thing is, I do this without even the full facts or finding things out. That is the problem. I just all of a sudden go from happy to it's all over. It's the end. I'm going to have to give up. I'm going to have to run away. I'm going to have to quit. And I'm really trying to fight that because there's people who rely on me now and I rely on them. And there's a pup that relies on me and there's cat, you know, so I can't do this kind of like old issue that I used to have. Because I'll be honest, I was great for this. Run into any trouble? I'll just run away and start again. That's how I lived my life for so many years. This isn't working. Oh, well, I'll just bugger off and do something else. Right? You know, for a long time, I never thought through until I started doing this job, actually. That job, hobby, craft, lifestyle. I suppose, is that a job or a lifestyle? I don't know. Again, well, please send your thoughts to calumlykanspokenword at gmail.com or at calumlykanstudio on Facebook. What are your thoughts? But yeah. I completely forgot where I was. Where was I? Oh, yeah. I used to just run away. It was the easiest solution and it made life quite simple. But ever since I became a storyteller, I've actually stopped doing that because you know what? All the performer, entertainer friends out there, everyone who does it, and I mean, there are some that are highly successful and are making it go, or shall I say they're making enough living to make life great for them. I'm hit and miss. Sometimes I'll make a cracking living and sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, what am I doing? But the reality is, you know, it's a struggle. It's a challenging career to take. But ever since I kind of took this career, I've basically focused my mind and I've gone for it. And I lost that runaway mentality. But every so often, when something really bad happens, that fight or flight mentality, it doesn't exist in me. It's flight. But I can't do it anymore, and I don't do it anymore because you know I've got a fiance and I've got a house and I've got. I was about to say kids, but pets. They are kids, I suppose, to a degree. You know, so I can't run. But the problem with that is that means my head starts to play tricks on me and I start to go into this kind of like, storyteller mode, this horrible storyteller mode where it's all negative and it's all like, how am I going to do this? And I get stressed up, my stomach gets knotted, my chest gets knotted and I just feel, I feel awful. And then I start to get really gloomy and just feeling really blue. But it's like so stupid because I'm doing it without any of the information that I actually need. It's just like one wee thing, like a wee bombshell drops, and it might not even be a massive one, and all of a sudden that bombshell, the ripples that flow out from that explosion is just, in my head, are just ridiculous. And that's what happened to me this week. I had these two weird little things. Now, they're not overly disastrous. I'm pretty confident one, if not both of them, will be worked out fairly soon. But it's the frustration, and I hate the frustration. I hate stress and frustration. I like the easy life, as we all do. So I don't handle well when stress comes in, especially stress that I thought I wouldn't need to deal with. Oh, man. Oh, it kills me. Anyway, so that's why I kind of fell to the wayside with my mission plan. I had this great idea, let's get these podcasts done. But unfortunately, my heart and soul just got ripped out of me, but it's my own fault. It's my own fault. Now, I don't know if anyone else has this, or in different degrees, and I'm probably talking like child's play compared to what some other people suffer with things. But I am just a terrible person for not being able to handle the simplest little things when it comes to like a bombshell. I automatically go to the end of the world. This isn't going to work. Okay, zombie apocalypse. Come on, bring it on. It's that type of mentality. I was watching something today, and it had a kind of Armageddon-esque scenario, but not like the end of everything, just like technology and civilization kind of crumbled and we all had to kind of survive. And I just thought that'd make life so much easier for me. Can you imagine? Okay, all my friends that know me know I'm useless. All right, I can't hammer a nail in straight or even the right way. I'm not a very what would be the word? I'm not a manly man when it comes to those pursuits. You know how people can camp and hunt and catch a fish with their bare hands and juggle 3 bears, etc. That's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm kind of like, ooh, that's a lovely talent, but I'm just going to go back to my book. Thanks. Have a good day. I'll just be over in the corner, kind of like reading while you kind of wrestle those mountain lions. And that's me. I'm not that guy. I'm not the manly guy. I might look it, I'm a strapping big Scotsman, But no, I'm definitely not. That's it's never been in my nature. My brother, he was more the manly man, and he used to, beat me up because I wasn't the manly man. Brothers, siblings, we used to get in tussles. Well, they weren't really tussles. He would come in and just whack me and tell me I was just useless and then walk off. Love him to bits. I love my brother. But God, when I think about some of the stuff that us kids did to each other, But I think that imposed a kind of lack of manliness on me. So I'm absolutely useless when it comes to life. So yeah, this is why when stress happens, I think I get it off my mum. She's a delightful worrier, and I think I've adopted that kind of persona from her, the delightful worrier and stressor. But the problem is I've magnified it with my craft. It has become doom and gloom. It's like take any fairy tale scenario, right, and then multiply it by 10. That's kind of how my head works. And I don't mean the happy fairy tales, I mean the proper ones. But yeah, so this week has been a bit of a strange one. It's been a great week for work. That was always fun. But yeah, this mission, I'm sitting here on Sunday now. So this is the 31st of March. I have to memory something like 7 podcasts that I still need to do to fulfill my mission in a day. I don't think it's going to happen, folks, but I'm going to try and at least get another 2, if I can, 3 or so out. I can't promise that will happen, but we're definitely getting this one out. Hey, bonus time. But yeah, life takes over and craziness. So anyway, if anyone ever actually suffers from these weird... No, I don't want to say suffer. That's the wrong word. If anyone ever has these kind of weird things and moments like me, where it is a minor thing, but your brain just escalates it tenfold, drop me a line and tell me how you deal with it, because, I am so fed up of just sitting staring at a wall when stuff like this happens, because that's what ends up happening. I have no energy. I just feel done. I sit there just feeling useless and like, what's the point? I'm like Marvin the paranoid android at times from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's almost like just, well, there's no point. Just give up, And it drives me insane because I hate to be that way, because the fact is things are still going. I need to keep things going. I need to keep working, because ultimately if I stay positive and keep working, then it'll all sort itself out one way or another. Boom. There you go. There's a positive note for myself. But in me, am I feeling it? No. Am I actually... I should be a motivational talker, because I get the feeling some of them don't really believe in it. No, that's horrible to say. It's true, though. But yeah, anyone's got any advice on this one, just let me know, because God, I wish I would stop overthinking and overanalyzing and getting caught up. My last episode, drama, this is how I feel now. I feel that I'm caught up in drama that isn't even there. I've created more drama for myself, when in fact, all I need to do is speak to the relevant people and see what can be done. And then it's like, yeah, okay, no problem. Or, oh, but there's always a solution. This is the thing. None of these are life or death. It's just inconvenience. And I hate inconvenience. Life should be nice and simple. That's what I'm telling you, folks. But no, inconvenience rears his ugly head once more. Just going to take a drink of water. Anyway, this is going to be a wee short episode, because I just wanted to come on and get it off my chest. Honestly, I think I'm going to have to change the Bothy Storytelling Podcast to the Calumlykanspokenword Therapy Podcast. And of course, not me giving you therapy. I'm just for my own therapeutic state of mind. Just getting things off my chest, because, gosh, sometimes this feels good. This feels great. I'm just talking to my microphone. I don't know if anyone's going to listen to it or even care. But anyway, guys, yeah. Life takes over, life gets weird, and sometimes it just throws this crazy scenario at you, and it throws you. And of course, I let it paint huge pictures and get out of hand. So please let me know if anyone else has these problems. And obviously, hopefully they won't be serious problems for yourselves. I'm just meaning in the same sort of like crazy mindset that I go on, where all of a sudden it's just like everything gets blown out of proportion when it shouldn't need to. Storytellers, eh? Who would put up with them? We're a delightful lot, but I tell you, we let it get carried away. I do know a couple of people in the storytelling community who also have this problem, and I do think it's the curse of the storyteller. We train our imagination to grow, to develop, to accept stories, accept fairy tales and unicorns and dragons, so that we can tell these stories with a lot more conviction and passion. And unfortunately, we maybe lose a little bit of reality as we do it. We maybe let things slip. But that's life. C'est la vie, etc. I think I'll stop rambling there today, and let's give you a wee story. So I've been telling you quite a few stories from the Wisdom Tales book of late, because I'm trying to learn a few, because they're great little short stories to fill things in with, etc. So here's another one, because, the way I'm thinking, this could be a good one for us. So there was once a beautiful garden, and the gardener was very proud of his garden, and he cared for it with great tenderness. Every day he would make the journey to his little garden shed at the far end of the garden, and there he would fill up his buckets with clear, sparkling water. Then he would walk along the little pathway to where the flower beds were, carrying water for the flowers. To water his flowers, he used 2 buckets, which he kept in the garden shed. One was shiny and new, recently bought, and the other one was very old and rather dilapidated. It had seen a long life of service in the garden, but was now well by its best. The gardener would fill up the 2 buckets every morning and carry them along, side by side, to the flowers. The bright, shiny bucket was very proud of itself. It could be relied upon to carry a full consignment of water right up to the flower beds without spilling a drop. The shabby old bucket felt very ashamed in comparison. It knew it had holes in it, and every morning it was so sad to see by the time the gardener reached the flower beds, a good deal of the water had already spilled out along the path. Sometimes the 2 buckets would talk to each other as the gardener carried them along the path to the flower beds. See how efficient I am, how good that the gardener has me to make sure the flowers are watered every day. I don't know why he still bothers with the likes of you. And all that the shabby old bucket could say was, I know, I'm not much use, but I can only do my best. I'm happy that the gardener still finds a little bit of use for me. One day, the gardener heard this kind of conversation going on. When he reached the flower beds, he watered the flowers as usual, using the full bucket of water from the shiny bucket, and the half bucket of water that was still left in the leaky old bucket. Then he picked up both buckets, now empty, and said to them, Thank you both. You've done your day's work very well. And now I'm going to carry you back to the shed, but as we go, I want you to look carefully at the pathway. So the two buckets did as the gardener asked, and they noticed that all along the path on one side, the side where the gardener carried the shiny new bucket, there was just bare earth. But on the other side, the side where the gardener carried the leaky old bucket, there was a row of young, fresh green shoots, which in another few weeks would be a joyous row of wild flowers leading all the way to the garden. And of course, that one is called The Leaky Bucket. And here's another wee one which I've been trying to learn big. And you know what? It's amazing because I'm reading these stories and I always choose a story which kind of makes the hairs in the back of my arm stand up and gives me that kind of feeling of, oh, this is a good story. And oddly enough, these are the sort of stories that I'm reading just now. And I think they're needed. I think this is the great thing of stories. They always come when they're needed. And here's another one. And this one is called The Map. Now, once a father was looking after his children and trying to keep them entertained, but he wasn't having too much success. It was wet, it was a Saturday afternoon, and the children were getting bored. They were starting to get on his nerves with their restlessness and their constant chattering. But the man was inventive, and suddenly he had an idea. He took down a magazine from the shelf and opened it up, looking through it until he found a map of the world. He tore this page out of the magazine and proceeded to cut it up with scissors into small pieces. Then he jumbled it up all the pieces all over the place and piled them on the floor like the pieces of a jigsaw. Then he set his two young sons the task of putting the map together again. Thinking that this would keep them quiet for a good long time, he left them and went to make himself a cup of coffee. Now, you can only imagine his amazement when 5 minutes later he came back to find the map neatly and accurately put back together again. How did you manage to put it back together so quickly? Oh, it was easy, said the young boy. You told us it was a map of the world, and when we looked at the pieces, at first we didn't know where to begin to sort it all out. It seemed impossible. But then we realised that there was a picture of a man on the other side. So we just put the man back together again. When we turned it over, the world had come back together again as well. Yes, Dad, chimed in the other brother. It's ever so easy. If you put the man right, the world is okay. And that one is called The Map. Just a nice wee short story there, but I think very needed for today's episode. But let's move on with the episode and let's find a good old book to review. You know what? I love the world because with this episode, I walk out to kind of think about a book to review and I happen to catch one out the corner of my eye that I bought ages ago that I've kind of been flicking through because it's something that always fascinated me, and it's Life Coaching for Dummies. It's one of the Dummies series, and I happened to pick this up a while back because I was really interested in the concept of life coaching and some of the principles behind it, and thought it might be able to help me kind of target myself better, etc., and focus what I was doing more. But basically, it is one of the Dummies series. It's Life Coaching for Dummies. Be inspired, take control, and unleash your full potential. Life coaching uses a range of practical techniques to help you assess your current situation and choose the best path for you. Perfect. It's exactly what some of us need, plan the route, start on your coaching journey, focus on key areas of your life, coach yourself to happiness, achieve harmony. Yeah, does that sound like anyone we know that's talking to you right now that needs this? Maybe I should read this book some more. It is $25.99 in Canadian. I picked this up, I believe, from Chapters, so it's readily available. This one is by Jenny Purdy, who is a life coach and NLP practitioner. But this is Life Coaching for Dummies, part of the big Dummies series that you can get many a book on. And this one's quite handy, very simply laid out, and a wee bit of a fun read. So that is my book recommendation for this episode of the Bothy Storytelling Podcast. And straight after our book recommendation, we move on to our podcast recommendation, and we are part of the Alberta Podcast Network. The Bothy Storytelling Podcast is a proud member of that, and there are many other podcasts on that. We've talked about this every episode, and the one recommendation I'm going to make this episode, I kind of hinted on it earlier on. I think this one falls perfectly in line about, manliness, and I know I'm not a manly guy, and there's a great podcast on here called Modern Manhood, a series of interviews towards understanding the many different views of masculinity, hosted by German Villegas. German is a great podcaster. Hopefully I'm going to be interviewing them very soon. We had arranged it, and then my telephone system thing didn't work. But my recommendation for this episode is Modern Manhood, a series of interviews towards understanding the many different views of masculinity, hosted by German Villages. And great podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network. I'd highly recommend it. Have a look at the albertapodcastnetwork.com and see all the listings. This one is under social issues, and that is Modern Manhood. And with that podcast recommendation, that brings us to the end of another Bothy Storytelling Podcast. Bit of a random episode, mainly just therapy for myself. Thank you very much for putting up with it. The last couple of episodes have just been me ranting and trying to sort things out in my head. But you know what, guys, as I mentioned, if anyone else has this problem of over creating stories in their heads out of simple things, do get in touch with me. I'd love to hear about this. It's a subject that does fascinate me, and I'd love to know people's ways to counter it, because it really does sometimes take over my life. I don't know if it's because of my craft. I don't know if it's just because of my imagination. I don't know if it's just because of who I am as a person, but I'd love to find out if anyone else has this kind of problem and how they cope and deal with it. Do they have any techniques or methods just to basically get their head back on that positive train of thought and charging forward in life? Drop me a wee line at calumlykansstudio on Facebook or calumlykanspokenword at gmail.com. Please drop me a wee line and let me know your thoughts. If you're interested in any topics, that's the word I was looking for the podcast, again, let me know what you'd like to hear. What sort of shows you would like to be hearing me doing, because, I'm a fairly open kind of formula now. It started off stories, and I like to throw in stories, but it's really open because I am taking that view that everything is a story. Even my own personal drama and silliness is a wee story for you guys to kind of think about. It might not be structured as a traditional fairy tale, but everything is a story. So let me know. Get in touch with me. Speak to me. And if not, then I'm just going to keep pumping out these kind of bizarre, wonderful, odd little shows, and hopefully you are enjoying them. But this is another episode of the Bothy Storytelling Podcast, and I'll look forward to speaking to you all soon.